Welcome to more World of Warplanes content from the Noble Queue. This video is about the Tier 6 Tech Tree British multirole fighter, the Hawker Tornado, featuring Millie Elliot as the pilot. Hello there, and here on the tarmac outside my hangar is the Tornado, the Tier 6 British multirole. And this aircraft never entered operational service, it only reached prototype stage. It was one of two designed by Hawker as potential replacements for the Hurricane, and it was based around the power plant, the Rolls-Royce Vulture engine. And that was an ill-fated engine and got cancelled, and shortly afterwards this aircraft was cancelled. The parallel development was using a Napier Sabre engine. That became the Typhoon, and that did see service, and is the Tier 7 multirole in this game. However, what we have here is not a Rolls-Royce Vulture engine. This is a Bristol Centaurus rail engine, and one of the two prototypes to fly was converted to use this engine, and out of that work came the Tempest, which certainly did see operational service, and of course is the Tier 8 British multirole in this game. In this game, the Tornado is a powerful, in terms of its engine power, multirole, so it has pretty decent airspeed, decent manoeuvrability, good guns. Altitude performance is what you would expect of a multirole, sort of indifferent, although it's okay for a multirole, and the ordnance is slightly weak. But what it also has is a special pilot, Millie Elliot, and she makes a significant difference in my opinion. So what we're going to do now is take a look at the numbers for the aircraft. If you don't want to look at a spreadsheet, look at a link below the video, and you can skip ahead to another part of it. Here we have the spreadsheet for all of the Tier 6 multiroles. There are 7 of them, and if you don't know how this spreadsheet works, there is a link to an instructional video below. Go and watch that and you will find out what you need to know. So let's talk about the gun armament, and it's pretty good news. Rating is 21, that's second best in class. The cumulative DPS is 360, also second best in class. However, the Corsair equals it, so in effect there are 4 aircraft with as good armament, if not better. The P-47B has got all of those machine guns, which you don't want to get in front of. And the Focke-Wulf 190A5 has a lot of armament, which you definitely don't want to get in front of. What we have are 4 Hispano 20mm cannons, 90 DPS each, rate of fire 400 rounds per minute, range fairly decent, 2231 feet. You won't struggle with that. Auto aim angle is a little bit stingy. It could be worse, but it certainly could be better. That's the amount you can be off target by, and the game will correct your aim for you. It's just 2.5 degrees. Dispersion angle, pretty standard for cannons here. It's not the best in this group, leaving aside the Yak 9's sniper gun, of course. That's different. 0.6, this is the amount the shells spread out as they leave the muzzle of your gun. What you will probably be hampered by, particularly if you're trigger happy, is the 5 seconds of overheat. These guns really do need managing, and you often will find that whatever you're shooting at, you can't knock it down in one burst. You have to use at least 2, if not 3, and if you're prone to overheating your guns, you will suffer. Shell velocity is 1240 feet, but at least you've only got 1 weapons group, so you don't have to worry about missing potentially when firing at an aircraft that's banking away from you at distance. Ordnance, in theory, it's got second best in class ordnance rated at 15. I beg to differ. This figure is inflated by a very good reload time, resupply time of only 60 seconds, compared to, for instance, the 120 seconds on the Corsair here, 90 seconds on the P-47B, and 90 seconds on the Focke-Wulf. However, you've only got 6 rockets, and they only do 6,000 cumulative damage at base. Range is okay at 3,300 feet, 3,350. And what that means is you have to pick your targets pretty carefully at sectors, and what I end up doing is probably using 3 rockets on a gun emplacement, but I will select the gun emplacements with the bunkers side by side and not split by the gun in the middle. Otherwise you need 4 rockets. Or I will fire at unarmoured gun emplacements, that's ones with guns and 3 sheds, and use 2 rockets each on those, so potentially you might get 3 targets at the right sort of sector. But this is not a very good aircraft for flipping sectors by doing extensive ground damage. The only saving grace really is the reload speed. Survivability is not particularly a good story either. It's as fragile an aircraft as any in this comparison, only 300 hit points, 49 damage resistance, and fire resistance, which is okay at 60. That will allow you to mount the first aid dressing kit if you're going to use, for instance, equipment that doesn't adversely affect this fire resistance skill, and possibly you could still mount it even if you do use the uprated engine, which is the one that affects that likelihood of fire. Airspeed, it's okay, but we've got mostly aircraft that are very similar in speed, with the exception of the rather lumbering IL-1 and the slightly slower Yak-9. But again, the Corsair, an airframe which is remarkably similar, it has to be said, to the Tornado, has the same sort of rating, similar sorts of speeds, slightly slower on cruise, slightly faster on boosted speed, for instance. Nice boost duration of 15 seconds. Not as long as the P-47B or the Focke-Wulf, but adequate. The dive speed is 466, which is, again, middling figure. So the airspeed is okay, but this will admit of a speed build. And when we come and do the builds comparison, the post-build effects, I will show you some indicative numbers for speed builds, so you can judge whether this is something you might want to do. Maneuverability, again, it's decent without outclassing the other aircraft here. It's got a pretty good turn time. May be able to get inside a base Corsair, for instance. The IL-1, do not mistake the IL-1 for a ground attacker. Do that and you will be sorry. This is a pretty manoeuvrable multi-role. The S119 you should be able to outturn at base. Definitely do the P-47B and the Focke-Wulf. Watch out for the Yak-9. You want to use speed against that, probably. And altitude performance. Well, as usual, the altitude performance of these aircraft is not great. The IL-1 has got ground attacker style altitude performance, as you can see. There are some aircraft that might get above you, but you're not going to be using altitude and vertical fighting in this aircraft. You are either going to be using maneuverability or speed, or a combination of both. We'll have a look at the power to weight ratios, and they're second best in class, which may indicate that the aircraft accelerates quickly. I will say that the way I've built it, it does feel fairly nimble, and I haven't got a speed build, so maybe we can trust these figures. The drawback is we don't know anything about drag in this game. We don't know if it's implemented. I suspect it is. We certainly don't have figures for the effects of drag on any of the aircraft, unfortunately. So take these figures with a pinch of salt, but on the face of it, it looks as if it should be fairly nimble and quick off the mark. We just drop down into the worst in class section to see if there's anything that we can glean. Well, there's the survivability being highlighted for you. Lots of red there. I know these figures are compressed, but it is on the low side. The airspeed is probably, I'd say average. I'm not going to say below average, but you can see there's some red appearing there. Watch out for that roll rate. You're not going to be using rolling to try and get away from anything on your tail. You're either using speed or maneuverability, and if you can't use either of those, then probably you're a dead duck. And then the altitude performance is not great, and that's for a multi-role, let alone for the fighters and heavies that you're going to encounter. So where does that place this aircraft? Well, we haven't talked about Millie Elliot, and Millie Elliot brings significant benefits, as you will see. And without spoilers coming from my talk about Millie Elliot, I like to build this aircraft for maneuverability. And that means that I can surprise particularly Corsairs that will usually try and turn with me on the basis that we've got similar turning figures. Definitely not the case if I've got Millie Elliot in this aircraft. We will look at the theoretical effects of a speed build later. But as I say, for me, if you build this for maneuverability, use those excellent guns, very carefully use the ordnance to get the maximum number of targets destroyed at a sector, this can be quite a fun multi-role to fly. There are others who will disagree with me, and they will find its performance a little bit anemic, so perhaps a Marmite aircraft. Let's go and see how I've set the aircraft up. Here we are back with the Tornado on the tarmac, and the first thing to say is that my instance of this aircraft is specialised, which means I have all of the equipment and consumable modules available. Let's go and see what you'll be missing when you first get this aircraft. So to do that, I need to put it into stock configuration. Now we can go and have a look at the service. All empty, of course, because I've emptied this out. And of 4 equipment slots, 2 will be locked, 1 on the engine, and 1 on the outboard weapon, which I don't think is actually that significant. And on the consumables, 2 will be locked, again, 1 on the engine. Nasty, especially if you get your engine shot out, you haven't got an engine restart, and you can't get engine cooling either. And then again on the outboard weapon. Okay, that's a little bit more of a nuisance. Right, let's pop it back into specialist configuration and let's see how I've configured this aircraft. In the post-build effects, you'll get some numbers on alternatives. Okay, so not unusually, I've started with the gun sight to improve the performance of the guns, so flat out accuracy improvement, and then these are the bonus characteristics these days that I would use. Bearing in mind you're going to be fighting against manoeuvrable fighters, if you start shooting at them you are going to want to try and cripple them so you've got a decent chance of being able to manoeuvre with them. Therefore I've got 15% extra chance of inflicting critical damage and indeed 10% chance of causing a fire. Now if you really like your accuracy, and as I say in today's meta I don't think that's the way to go, but you may disagree, you have got a couple of accuracy bonus characteristics you can pick off to increase the accuracy by 8%. And also, if you're worried about your pilot getting injured, I'm not, but you can install that 5% resistance to injury bonus characteristic there. And then I've gone on the next two slots with a lightweight wing frame and a lightweight power unit because I'm building this aircraft for manoeuvrability and maximising the effect of Millie Elliot's manoeuvrability skill, which we will discuss shortly. And on the lightweight wing frame, we have bonus characteristics of wings resistance to critical damage. Actually, I do like that. I've kept that deliberately. Again, if you get crippled by another aircraft, it's a real nuisance, so anything that prevents that from happening or makes it less likely is a good thing. And then I've gone 3% roll manoeuvrability and 1% yaw manoeuvrability. If you are going to absolutely maximise your manoeuvrability, there is another 2% roll manoeuvrability characteristic you can pick off there, and therefore you'd remove the wing's resistance to critical damage. The other two characteristics are not favourites of mine, but there they are. Extra aircraft HP, I don't think that would make a great deal of difference. And 1% cruise speed. Well, if you're going for more speed, unless you're mitigating the effects of the loss of speed, then I don't see why you'd pick that either. And then we have the lightweight power unit. And there we've got more manoeuvrability, and this time I have gone to mitigate some of the effects of this equipment on speed, mainly because that's the best choices I think I can get here. 1% acceleration with boost, 1% cruise speed, 1% acceleration with boost activated. If I were to completely concentrate on manoeuvrability instead of that, one of those characteristics, I'd pick the bottom one there, 2% yaw manoeuvrability. There's also extra 5% resistance to critical damage of the engine, which can be handy, especially if you're flying stock and you can't mount an engine restart consumable. Maybe that would be a characteristic, if you can get it, to have instead of one of these. Now here's the interesting choice, and the reason I haven't talked about alternative pieces of equipment in the previous slots is because I'm going to do that separately. I've decided that the ordnance is so weak, or weak enough, usable but still weak, that I am not going to use the strengthened hardpoints. Instead, I've gone to offset the effects of a manoeuvrability build by mounting the ultimate aerodynamic pylons, which gives me 64% outboard bomb aerodynamics and rocket aerodynamics. Well, I've got rockets on this plane, so it's rocket aerodynamics. What does that mean? Well, I can only guess. There's no direct way of calculating it that I've found so far, but when we look at post-build effects, I'll give you what my guess is. Suffice to say, it improves the speed of both under cruise and under boost. The alternatives I'm going to discuss are taking off the aerodynamic pylons and putting on the strengthened hardpoints. As I say, the ordnance for me is too weak to justify that, but if you absolutely want a really quick reload of your ordnance and you don't mind the penalties arising therefrom, then I'll show you the effects of the strengthened hardpoints with a manoeuvrability build. You could combine it with a speed build, but that to me seems to be counterintuitive. Why would you put these on and then go for why would you go for a strengthened hardpoints and then put on a speed build? But you might. However, I'm not going to show you that. What I will also do is show you a build with a polished skin and a combined injection boost system, and also a polished skin and an uprated engine. Obviously, those things have to be mounted separately because you've only got one engine slot. Be that as it may, I would probably go for the same consumables, and certainly because I haven't got the uprated engine on, I'm very comfortable in going for a first aid dressing package, which is useful because you can bet your bottom dollar you're going to follow bombers with a fully tricked out rear gunner who will shoot your pilot out almost instantly. Healing him is a good idea, otherwise you're just going to miss and miss and miss and miss, and then the rear gun will demolish it. To be fair, you're going to encounter aircraft with rear gunners that will shoot your pilot out, you will heal him, and they instantly shoot your pilot out again, because of course, in my opinion, and many others, I'm pretty sure, criticals for some reason have been turned up in this game, and they are now a decisive factor in many engagements, much to the frustration of good players. For extra manoeuvrability, I've mounted the pneumatic control assist. I have got this consumable slot, so I've mounted engine cooling. If you really want to maximise on speed, you'd probably go for improved mixture control. If you find your engine being shot out a lot, then go for the bottle, a manual engine restart bottle. Controversial choice, perhaps. Because these are cannons, I've gone for the gold fragmentation ammunition. Well, I've got lots of gold that I need to get rid of. However, I think you'll probably do well enough with the universal ammunition if you can't afford or are opposed to using gold in the game. And by the way, I would be entirely happy if they did take away gold ammunition from this game. And then the heavy warhead. Again, if you don't want to use a gold consumable, you can use the improved fragmentation to get most of the same effect and to improve your damage. Whereas the gold one increases the maximum damage as well. I thought it might actually increase the radius as well. It doesn't, as it happens, so it's increasing damage. Watch out for that when we come to post build effects. Right, time to talk about Millie Elliot. Here is the pilot dialog box for Millie Elliot, and Millie Elliot is a special pilot designated for the Tornado, so she comes with 2 special skills, one of which is fixed, one of which can be taken off, and the skill points used elsewhere if you so desire. The fixed skill is Tornado Master. It increases the aircraft's hit points. Well, it's fairly fragile, so that's welcome, but it's not going to make a big difference probably. And damage inflicted by forward-firing weapons by 10%. That is very useful. And it's only for the Tornado aircraft. If you choose to use Millie Elliot elsewhere, and you can of course, then this skill is no longer usable, and of course it consumes 2 skill points. Because this is not a 0-point skill, it takes 2 skill points away from you. The other special skill, which is optional, you can reset this and take it away if you wish, is Air Acrobat. And that increases the manoeuvrability of the aircraft by 4%, and the accuracy of the guns when they're firing at moving targets. That's the auto-aim angle, so you're going to get a benefit on your auto-aim angle. You're going to be able to miss by more, and the game will say, okay, you were close enough, you'll hit your target. Unfortunately, this replaces, it does not include the aerobatic skill, so you lose that 2% advantage. And if this skill was somewhere else, for instance, if it were on Eagle-Eyed, and then you could also have the aerobatic skill, then Millie Elliot would be very much like the recent pilot that's come into the game, Elise Clark, and she'd be even more useful, particularly in manoeuvrable British aircraft. But she isn't, so bear that in mind. So, how have I built Millie for this aircraft? Well, the Tornado Master skill is one that you would have anyway, but it's built in, you've got no choice, so there's your first 2 skill points, full stop. And then you have to start using up the next 2 skill points, which I think you will probably still put on the Air Acrobat skill, unless you're absolutely determined to have a very fast machine and going to load all your eggs into that basket, in which case you can remove this skill and put it into something like Engine Guru 1 and Engine Guru 2. But not for me, so I've kept the Air Acrobat skill with the 2 skill points, worked my way up to Aerodynamics Expert because I've got equipment that benefits from the effect of the Aerodynamics Expert skill, increases the effect of lightweight wing frame, lightweight power unit by 40%. Incidentally, it will do the same on equipment for speed, polished skin, uprated engine, and the boost mixture injection system. And then I've worked pretty hard to get Engine Guru 1, and I think I'm going to keep Marksman 1 rather than drop it and try and get Engine Guru 2. And I'll probably do that even with a speed build. I find that the guns are just a little bit inaccurate, and therefore this is actually the build that I would use for both the manoeuvrability build and a speed build. And after this, if I'm on a speed build, I'd probably go for Engine Guru 2. I might go for Marksman 2, but even with the manoeuvrability build, I'd probably think about going for Engine Guru 2. The alternative, of course, is the cruise flight here, and then way in the future, I'm probably going to build up towards either resilience or evasive target. Raptor Strike, this is evasive target. But there you go. That's how I've built Millie Elliot for this plane. So the next thing we're going to do is go and have a look at the post-build effects of the choices I've made, and also for 3 other potential builds. Here is a spreadsheet showing the effects on the base figures for the Tornado of 4 different builds. Before I talk about any of those builds, the effects on the base figures come from 7 sources. That's your choice of equipment, the level of that equipment, the calibration you've put into it, the bonus characteristics you've selected, the consumables you've chosen, pilot skills that you use on the aircraft, and then sometimes camouflage bonuses. And on that point, there are no bonuses coming from camouflage in this particular case. I do have a special camouflage on the Tornado, but it conveys 5% crew experience. So if we look at the spreadsheet, what we've got are the base figures in columns C and D. You've seen these already if you watch the aircraft statistics section. Then in column I and J, we have the build that I've just shown you, which is gun sight, lightweight wing frame, lightweight power unit, and aerodynamic pylons. We have the differences between those and the base figures expressed absolutely in column K, I beg your pardon. In column L, we have the differences expressed as percentages. So what have we been able to achieve with the guns? Well, we've got a rating increase up to 23, which is welcome. It's nearly 10%. The cumulative DPS has gone up 10%, it's 396, and here's the effect. This is all coming from Millie Elliot, by the way. The DPS per gun has gone up to 99, and we've also been able to widen the auto-aim angle. We've got a 10% increase there, which means you can be off target by a little bit more, and the game will say, fair enough, you're close enough. So it's gone up to 2.75 from 2.5 degrees. And the dispersion angle, the cone in which your bullets spread out, has tightened to 0.47, 22% increase. So quite nice. And these guns are pretty good, so any positive effects on the guns are going to stand you in good stead. Now, all of the builds are going to have the same features for the guns, so we won't talk about that again on the other 3 builds. Just drop down, we can see there are, of course, bonus characteristics that I've selected to give me 15% more chance of critical damage and 10% more chance of fire. On the ordnance, we have been able to improve it. It's not great ordnance, so any improvement is welcome, but it's not going to be that significant in the context of the game, in my opinion. You may disagree, in which case you might do more with the ordnance, as I'll explain shortly. We've got a couple of points increase on the rating, 13.3%. We've got the damage up to 7,500. That's coming from the bonus characteristic on the aerodynamic pylons, which we will lose on some of the builds, plus Millie Elliot. Sorry, not Millie Elliot. This is coming from the gold consumable, the heavy warhead. That's welcome, and it makes the aircraft a little bit more flexible, in my opinion, because with 6,000 you are struggling to get those gun emplacements that I mentioned, even if you use the techniques I described earlier in the video. That comes at the expense of 7 seconds longer reload time. Now, if this was great ordnance, I wouldn't do this. I'd go the other way around. I'd probably load strength and hard points, grit my teeth about the effects on airspeed, but use that ordnance more frequently. I don't think this ordnance justifies it, and therefore I'm quite happy to lose 7 seconds on the resupply time. The next build will use strength and hard points, and you'll see what you can do if you really must get that ordnance used as often as possible. Survivability, a little bit of an increase, 1 rating point. That's, I suppose, welcome. This is coming from Millie Elliot. We've got the hit points up to 311. To be fair, that's not going to make much difference, usually. But it's welcome, nonetheless. For me, the really important thing is that the fire resistance hasn't been reduced. Airspeed, got a little bit of a positive effect, and even a rating point has increased. So from 46 to 47, 2.2%. And this is coming roughly from the aerodynamic pylons, and we'll talk about those in a moment. I'll drop down and show you what my estimates are of the effect, taking the cruise speed up to 274 from 265, and the boost maximum speed up to 399. And this isn't a speed build, so to actually get any improvement is actually slightly surprising and very useful. Let's just go down to the bonus characteristics. I didn't talk about the rocket's 20% blast radius. You probably won't notice the difference. 6% more chance of having your wings damaged, which is not good, but you probably won't be able to detect that. You might detect 12% more engine damage resistance, particularly if you're flying stock and you haven't been able to mount a restart bottle, of course, and the 16% extra pilot resistance, in minus 16% resistance to injury for the pilot. Here's the airspeed, which I was just talking about, 64% rocket aerodynamics. What does that mean? Well, I've had to guess at it, I'm afraid. I can't calculate it for you, not yet anyway. I haven't found out how it works. But I think it's worth about 5 miles an hour on the cruise speed and about 8 miles an hour on the boost speed. Now, I don't know if that would be the same on another aircraft, but it is here, as far as I can tell. We've also got some other effects on acceleration, which is nice, make the aircraft feel more nimble, both under boost and with no boost. We come to manoeuvrability. This is where you would expect a manoeuvrability build to have its most profound effect, and I think it does. It's gone up from 59 to 73, and we've got very nearly 24% increase in the rating figure there. Now, the UI, in my opinion, does not calculate the turn time correctly. It shows it as 9.7. I think it's missing out the aerodynamics expert skill, and I think it's actually about 9.5, which is a 12% increase and more, which is nice. And we've got that sluggish roll rate up to something that's still not great, but it's certainly a lot better than 90, and it's nearly 113 now, 25% increase. And I think that this certainly makes this able to fight other multi-roles very capably, surprising them. And that's useful. It's obviously not going to compete with many of the fighters. You need to be sure about what aircraft you're engaging and not just plough in regardless, thinking this manoeuvrability is going to make you beat everyone. That's certainly not the case, but certainly for the multi-roles, now you've got the makings of a very usable approach to down them without them being able to do anything about it. Altitude performance, we do have an increase of 1 point. It's coming from the effective aerodynamics pylons largely on the climb rate. We just go and have a look at something else on the manoeuvrability. We've got 14.5% extra yaw manoeuvrability. This is not shown in the UI anywhere. I use yaw in my turns. If you're not using yaw, why not? So another 14.5% is very welcome indeed. And as I just mentioned, there's the note I've made about the aerodynamic pylons affecting the altitude performance. So for the next build, we're going to look at substituting strengthened hard points for the aerodynamic pylons and see what the effects are. Well, you would expect there to be an effect on the resupply time, and there is. It's a good one. But because we've lost the bonus characteristic of the aerodynamic pylons, we've actually reduced the cumulative damage down from 7,500 to 7,200. Now, this is still a 20% increase over the base figure, and I think probably you won't notice the difference. So it's manageable. Well, it has improved, and I reckon you could probably, if you fully calibrated that piece of equipment, get this down to about 44, maybe 43 at a guess. We've got a 24% improvement on the resupply time, so this ordnance is going to come back to you much more quickly. If you really like using ordnance and multi-roles, then this is the way to go for you, but be aware, you've got some adverse impacts coming on airspeed, and I think this is going to make this aircraft feel a bit like a slug. You've lost 2 rating points, 4.3%. Critically, you've lost very nearly 10 miles an hour, certainly 9 miles an hour on the cruise speed, and you've lost 19 miles an hour on the boost maximum speed. And I think this is going to make you a sitting duck personally. It's not something I think I want to trade for an decrease in the supply time of the ordnance. There are aircraft where I would make that trade-off, but those are aircraft with really good ordnance, and I don't regard the Tornado's ordnance as being good enough to justify this. But there you go. That's the effects that will occur, or indicative effects that will occur if you put on strengthened hard points. I think it's time to talk about speed builds. We've just dropped down into bonus characteristics for this. Pretty similar in some respects to the other ones. Some have been dropped out, but as you would expect, the main effect is on the ordnance and also the airspeed. So talking of speed, what can we do in terms of speed builds? Well, we can go first off a combined injection boost system and a polished skin instead of a lightweight power unit and a lightweight wing frame. Guns, no differences there. Ordnance, we're still getting an increase because we've still got the aerodynamic pylons, which of course, if you're going for pure speed, you would definitely mount and not the strengthened hard points. You could put the strengthened hard points on. If you do, bear in mind you're going to adversely affect the speed that you're trying to gain by using the polished skin and the combined injection boost system. So we've seen these figures before. They're the same as the original build, the build that I've got in the hangar, so we won't talk about those. Survivability, we've now got the full benefit of Millie Elliot's skill, and we've got 330 hit points, which is quite nice. I still don't think it's going to go very far, but it might just save you. There has been an occasion where I've had 1 hit point left in a battle with the Tornado recently. It would have been nicer to have a few more. Airspeed, now up to 51 from 46. This is where the major increases are coming. And we've got very nearly 11% increase in rating. What we've got is a 13% increase in the cruise speed, 299, and a rather nice boost maximum speed of 423. And if I were going for a speed build, this is the one that I would go for. The alternative is the uprated engine. I'll show you that in a moment, but it's not the one I would go for. Of course, since you're using the combined injection boost system, you lose 2 seconds of boost. Not welcome, but probably manageable. Manoeuvrability still increases, It's not by much, but it's gone up to 62, 5.1%. You've got a slight decrease in the turn time, and you've got a slight increase in the roll rate. You probably won't notice these effects, but at least it's not adverse. And something that has changed quite noticeably is the climb rate to a rather nippy 420 feet per second, and this is coming from the aerodynamic pylons and the injection mixture system. Sorry, combined injection boost system. Got it right finally. If we just look at the bonus characteristics very quickly. Guns, same as before. Rockets, same as before. Only 16% resistance to injury penalty for the pilot. There's the bonus characteristic, or rather the estimate of the aerodynamics, rocket aerodynamics improvement. Again, got a 10% engine cooldown speed. That's nice, but considering you've lost some boost, you get it back a little bit quicker, 10% quicker. And you've got some acceleration effects here as well. Maneuverability, something that's not listed in the UI. You get on this occasion with this build 2.2% extra maneuverability. Okay, at least it's positive. But it's not probably going to make a significant difference. But I use yaw in my turns, so any improvement is useful. And finally, we're going to look at another speed build, and this time it's with the uprated engine instead of the combined injection boost system. You can only have one or the other. You've only got one slot on the engine. Guns are the same as before. Ordnance, same as the build in the hangar, so we won't talk about these. Survivability we do need to talk about. We've still got an increase, interestingly, of 1 point, which is coming from the hit points. But bear in mind that your fire resistance has gone down to 46. I think that level probably means I would still mount the first aid dressing package, and I probably wouldn't expend skill points on firefighter or fire resistance. But you are going to get set on fire more often. And if you're finding that's happening a lot, then you probably are going to have to use at least one of those skills or the fire extinguisher, if not a combination of all three. Airspeed, the effect is 54. We'll just have a quick look previously. It's now rated as rather better than the other speed build that I've just shown you, the one with the combined injection boost system. What have we got here? Well, now the aircraft is 320 miles an hour, 321 miles an hour for cruise speed. Let's just bring these both into view, which is considerably faster than the 299 on the other speed build. However, you are not as fast under boost, and for me, I think speed under boost is more important. You've only got 402 miles an hour improved as a figure here, which is a full 21 miles an hour slower than using the combined injection boost system. I would prefer to use the other speed build, especially given that the effect on fire resistance here. However, you don't have an effect on the boost. That's now back up to its full 15 seconds. And the maneuverability, again, you've got the same effects as you had on the other speed build. And that is not 73, that is 32. Let's correct that on the fly. There is an improvement. In fact, actually, I think it might be 31. Might remain at 31, but you have got an improvement on the climb rate to 377 in this case. It's not as quick as under the combined injection boost system. Indeed, it's not as quick as the maneuverability build either. We just looked down at the bonus characteristics. Nothing new here. Pretty similar to the other speed build. The accelerations are slightly better, which is interesting under an uprated engine. This is something I haven't really appreciated before. Uprated engines may come with drawbacks, but they do actually give you good acceleration. So it's a pity we don't know about Dragging the Gamer. Otherwise, these could be quite significant. You're just going to have to judge it for yourself. Okay, so those are the figures for 4 indicative builds on the Tornado. The next thing to do is go and see how it performs in battle. The map for the forthcoming battle is Peripheral Mission. It's the Snowy Shore variant, 5-sector map with the sectors laid out in the familiar 5 spots of a die configuration. We have 4 garrisons surrounding a central airbase, and therefore the central airbase is not only strategically the most important sector on the map, it's also tactically the most important sector on the map. Tactically, it allows easy access to all the other sectors, or garrisons of course. You can spawn there, which is also always powerful when it's in a central location. You can get a different aircraft of the same tier if you're destroyed, or you can get full repairs. And the usual method to win a battle on this map is to try and seize hold of the airbase and hold it for at least longer than the enemy during the game. Hold your 2 local garrisons and use that airbase as a platform to attack the enemy's garrisons. There is an alternative This depends on the enemy team making the mistake of swarming around the airbase and not paying attention to the garrisons. You can try and take at least 3, if not all 4 of the garrisons, force the enemy to disperse and perhaps take advantage of them when they've all left the airbase. If we look at the order of battle, we can see that for company at tier 6 I have a BF-109F, which is not specialised, a specialised XP-54, myself, an unspecialised Spitfire 5, and then we have 3 tier 5s, a BF-109E not specialised, an HS-129B, it's going to struggle in this battle probably, it's not specialised, and the specialised Hurricane 2D. The enemy, on the other hand, have the extra tier 6. They have an XP-54 to counter ours, and I'll drop down and say that they've also got a Key 102, so immediately they've got a terrific advantage in terms of heavies. They've got a high-altitude, high-energy fighter, a P-51A. Admittedly, it's not specialised, but that's going to counter our BF-109F, probably. They've got a very good turn fighter, the XP-55, and then they've also got an A-26B, which on this map is a good bomber, because we haven't got, for the most part, special objects to bomb. We've just got shed complexes and tents and gun emplacements. The A-26B will do that all day long without batting an eyelid. Immediately, I look at that order of battle and I think the enemy's got everything they need not only to dominate the centre, but probably take the garrisons as well. It's a really nasty looking matchup. Additionally, the enemy have got 2 tier 5s, a MiG-3 and a LAG-3. And my initial thought on seeing this was that we had very little chance of seizing hold of the centre unless the enemy played badly because of the 2 heavies to 1 advantage, the turn fighter advantage, and the P-51A probably countering the BF-109F, so I thought our best chance was to go for the peripheral garrisons. Let's see how this battle turned out. As we go into battle, this is a natively recorded replay file. It's not one of World of Warplanes replay files, therefore you're going to see me zooming in, you're going to see the reticle accurately aimed, the movement may be a little bit more jerky. So, straight away we're going to the nearest garrison, which happens to be on the left, and we're going to try and employ this ordnance. Remember I've beefed this ordnance up so that it can do a job, and I've immediately picked off the gun emplacement with the 2 bunkers next to one another. I knew where that was, I know where the next one is, so I'm going to go for that now. There's 3 rockets in there. Destroy the gun with my weapons. And now we're going to try and shoot down some of the air defence aircraft. Don't need to, my team has captured this already. Now we're going to go off to the garrison, which the enemy is trying to capture in the corner of them ahead of me. As I thought, the enemy have taken the airfield without much bother. I think quite a lot of my team decided that they weren't going to go to the centre as well. Now it looks as if this is going to be captured before I get there. That's not going to change my objective. In some ways it helps me because I've still got about 30 odd seconds, 24 seconds I think I saw pop up there before my ordnance reloads, and I really need that. MiG blows up and it wasn't me who got him. XP-54 got him from nowhere. So just while we're waiting for this ordnance to come back, we may as well at least damage this ground attacker, indeed not shoot it down. We don't want to lose our garrison. There he goes. The air defence aircraft are now in place. I'm not going to chase that ground attacker. I want to get about taking this garrison. We've managed to get our 2 local garrisons, so we have parity at the moment. Don't fly straight at the air defence heavy. That will hurt. That conveniently puts me in place to destroy this gun emplacement. Again, it's at one with the 2 bunkers next to one another, so 3 rockets into that. XP-54 is helping me. I can see that if I get this gun emplacement, we should have this sector. And that's 3 sectors to 1. And now we're going to go and see if we can get to the enemy's garrison, which they've just taken ahead of us in the other corner. Now, I'm going to guess that if the enemy does lose any aircraft, they're not going to spawn back here. Well, unfortunately, the bomber does spawn back at the original spawn point. I go low, just in case anything else spawns, to try and discourage them from diving on me. Fortunately, nothing else has spawned, so I've got to clear onto the garrison. The only problem is I've been spotted. So anybody who knows what they're doing may either stay at the garrison if they're already there, or leave the airfield and come and try and deal with me. Still got 22 seconds to ordnance. going to be a question of trying to take aircraft at the moment. I can see there's at least one fighter here amongst the air defence aircraft. Tried to go for the heavies. We've now lost one of our local garrisons. I am going to have to get on with this. Realise the enemy aircraft are getting too close. The fighter in particular has tried to get me. Fortunately, it's a boomerang that very nearly stalled out. Now we're in a turn fight. If this is the MiG, I should be okay. Being on the build. We've got the garrison anyway. In fact, I'm not alright. So he must have a turn build on his MiG. That's unusual. Most people put a speed build on the MiG. It's fairly even, but I'm wasting time. Hoping he was going to get bored. So I have got him. It looks to me as if he used a consumable to try and increase his turn rate right at the start of that engagement. And now he realises he's lost the turn fight. That was close. Air and ground goes through, so we're back up to 3 sectors. The enemy still has the airfield. We're not really contesting it. That's not really surprising. I see a multirole coming in, so I decide I want to get rid of that. Goes for ramming a probe vector, I should say. But after that, I outmaneuver him easily. Got a specialised fighter coming in. This is bad news. Managed to damage him before he rams me. So, of course, we haven't got the airfield. I have to spawn back at the original spawn point, and it puts me in a position where I think about threatening the XP-54. Now, we had, during my respawn time, all 4 garrisons. We've now lost one. So I'm wondering if we have got an opportunity to take the airfield, have the enemy dispersed. I'm going to take out a ground target, now I'm going to try and take out an air defence boomerang. Keep an eye on that XP-54. Turn for me, hoping I'm going to get to shoot him down. Of course, there's a key 102 around somewhere and I'm being absolutely pulverised here. I have got the XP-54 down, but my gamble failed. So I spawned back at the original spawn point again. However, we're still 3 sectors to 2 up. So if the enemy comes out and gives me an opportunity, it's still worth trying to take this airfield, although they've fully defended it now. There's a stray air defence aircraft, so I go for that. Hoping I can get away from anything that's paying attention to me. He comes after me. That looks like the key 102, just on that glimpse. He's now come out. With this long-range weaponry, which does good damage, probably kill him. Got to watch out for a bomb trap here. In fact, it flies into the ground anyway. And as I speak it happens. He did in fact drop a bomb just before he died. So we spawn back in again, but this time it is at the airfield. We captured it during the time I was out of the game. However, we have lost 2 of our garrisons. Choose to focus the XP-54 rather than the MiG, because if I get the XP-54 out, he's not coming back. Down he goes. I've only got 4 rockets. I should have reloaded those rockets when I was destroyed the first time. See, I was so busy I forgot. It looks as if one of these enemy is swapped into a lightning. Also just imagining that. There we go. That's another enemy down. I need to try and get this sector. I'm not being threatened from behind. I've had a quick look at the mini-map. Heavy that flew across me, which I assume was the key 102, just misidentifying it, has chosen to fly all the way to the other garrison. So I've got to set about trying to take this. We do have a healthy lead. The enemy has spent too much time swarming about the middle, seeking damage rather than the win condition. Go for another 2 bunker gun emplacement. Turn around to look for the other one, which is over there in the corner. It's intact, so I can use my rockets here. Choose to wait until I'm past the radio mast. It's not unusual for the radio mast to intercept the rockets. And now we're 4 sectors to 1 down, so we really are in a bit of trouble. Decide to try and take out another ground target. That's the hero of the sky badge going through. 2 sectors to 3. We've lost the airfield. I think it's time to be cautious here. I'm going to go off and see if I can take garrison. At the very least, not get detected. You see why. I realised there were very few aircraft left on our team. The enemy could very well win by killing us all. I am going to get detected here. But I think I've got enough time to do this without the enemy being able to get out of the middle and find me. Just mustn't get shot down by the ADAs, that would be a disaster. It is heavy, we're 3/4 of the way to getting this. This is only for an insurance policy. Don't think I'm actually going to have time. Lost another sector, it's tight. 3 rockets into that gun emplacement. As it happens, I didn't need it. We have an 800 to 795 point victory. A hard fought battle, and in truth, not one I expected to win. Let's look at the outcome of this battle, and as we can see, it's a 5 chevron battle, or a grade 1 multi-role fighter. That grows 66,396 credits, or silver if you prefer. Just over 22,000 of that came from the premium account bonus. If we look in the message box, we can see there were expenses of 12,000 credits. That was for losing the aircraft 3 times. Now the next 2 figures are inflated because I was running boosters. Aircraft experience is 7,610, the base there is 2,671, premium account bonus 1,335, and then the boosters make up the rest, plus some other bonuses. Free experience, 1,520 in total, 313 is the base, 66 from the premium account bonus, and then the boosters making up the vast majority of that. 1 token, first medal of the day, that's the Hero of the Sky badge. There's also a winged legend there. Go to the personal score tab, we can see that 2 of the class specific missions were complete, 3/5 complete on the 3rd one, destroying aircraft when defending. That's enough to get 13 points, which is what you need for a 5 chevron battle. 14,825 personal points, which goes to show that getting the class specific missions and personal points don't always go hand in hand. Busy, 5 sectors captured, 15 aerial targets destroyed, 4,126 damage to aerial targets, only 13 criticals coming from those cannons on this occasion. Lost the aircraft 3 times, capture points 600, and that was split 120 for defending and 480 for attacking. 6 air ground targets destroyed, 19,451 damage to those. Team score tab, we can see that's enough for first place by personal points, equal first place by chevrons. On my team, excellent effort from the XP-54 there, although to be fair, that is an overpowered aircraft, but he was fighting 2 good heavies and an XP-55. And on the enemy team, would have come second by both personal points and first by chevrons. The Key 102. That's a monster game and a loss. I should think he's gritting his teeth a bit after that game. That brings me to the end of the review section for the Hawker Tornado, which I think is a well-balanced tech tree multi-role. If you build it well, you can extract the most from this aircraft, and my preference is for a manoeuvrability build, which I think maximises the potential of the special pilot Millie Elliot. However, there is a speed build, particularly with the combined injection boost system, which I think is worth trying, and that's what I'll be doing next. Fortunately, at Tier 6, you don't get too many grossly overpowered aircraft, with the exception of the XP-54. There's still a lot of fun to be had at these tiers. This aircraft, if you fly it well, is rewarding to play. Well, I hope you found that useful, and that if you did, you'll come and see my future content. Stick around, there's an unnarrated bonus battle coming up, but I'm going to leave you here, so this is the Noble Q, signing out.